Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. It's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. You can follow on Insta, celebrity_jobber_podcast. Also, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Also streaming on Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And please hit the subscribe button. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. If you want to check out past guests and episodes, you can do so by going to celebrityjobber.com. How did it all happen for some of these people? Maybe they had a dream early on and they worked towards it for years and hit the big time after a lot of hard work. Or sometimes it was kind of a complete accident. Perhaps that was the case for our guest today, comedian Henry Cho. Born in Knoxville, Tennessee, to Korean-born parents, Henry became the first Asian American invited to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry. Henry is well known as a clean comedian. We'll find out how Henry got his big break and how the comedy and showbiz career all got started. You know, I'm sure with Korean-born parents, stand-up comedy wasn't a family tradition. Jobs outside of comedy? He's had a few. We'll talk about those and, of course, his first job. On tour here in the new year, you can go to henrychocomedy.com for more details. That's henrychocomedy.com. In his 40th year in stand-up comedy, and again, the first Asian American invited to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry, Henry Cho is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
I've known of Henry Cho for a long time. So how long you been in show business for?
I've been doing stand-up. January will be 40 years.
Wow. 40 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell me a little something about your life before stand-up. Tell me.
I was in college. I was, and I told my buddies I was going to try stand-up. And, of course, they thought I was crazy. And I went down to the local comedy club in Knoxville, Tennessee, Funny Bone. They had some competition, and I entered it not knowing what it was. And I thought it was like 12 guys like me, and it ended up being a real competition.
Right.
So it was me and 11 guys that knew what they were doing, and it was a Monday night, and I told my buddies I was just going to go up and try it and never talk about doing it again. And lo and behold, I won. And the guy who owned all the Funny Bone chain, there were 12 comedy clubs at the time, Jerry Kubak, he happened to be there because it was that big of a deal, which I had no idea. And he hired me right there on the spot. So I started working on Wednesday, and I dropped out of college on Friday. And
wow.
I've been true story, and I've been doing it ever since.
Now, this is pretty amazing because you hear about, I mean, these are like stories that are told in a movie, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
like that shouldn't have happened. You shouldn't have gotten up on stage for the very first time doing a comedy competition and won with no, like you didn't know what a premise was. Did you have any idea how to tell a joke, or are you just like, yeah, I'm a funny guy, I'm going to get up there and do it? Or were you a student of comedy, or like you just got up and did it?
I just kind of got up and did it. I used to watch Seinfeld and Blake Clark and Rich Scheidner on The Tonight Show, Gary Shandling, Leno, all these guys. I watched The Tonight Show like all kids did back then. When you had 3 channels and Johnny Carson was it, So I knew what a stand-up comedian was. I'd never hung out in comedy clubs. I wasn't one of those guys. I never did open mics. I just thought on a whim that I would try it. And when I called down there to find out the protocols, they said, hey, well, there's a competition next week on Monday. We're full, but we'll make you the first alternate. And if somebody drops out, you can have their spot. And I said, okay. And sure enough, on Friday, they called and said, somebody dropped out, so you're in. I went, okay. So driving my truck with my 2 college roommates, we're driving to the comedy club, and they're going, "You're serious?" I said, "Yeah." They go, "Well, remember when this happened? Remember this?" So we just started talking about what I should say.
Wow.
And I went up there and told stories, and my first joke destroyed. And from then I went, okay,
Wow.
all right, I like this. So yeah, I got a standing ovation, first time ever.
So, okay, Henry, this is pretty surreal already. Now, you grew up in the South. You're an Asian American. You're going to college. I want to know what the conversation was like between you and your dad when you're like, "Hey, Dad, I want to quit. I want to quit going to college and become a stand-up comedian." I can't think that conversation went well. Tell me a little about it.
You're spot on. So I do this, and I get hired, and I go back to class that week, and I'm just writing jokes in class. And my college roommate says when I walked off stage that very first time, he said, I don't know if you remember, but you high-fived me and said, "I may never have to take another college course the rest of my life." And so my parents immigrated here 75 years ago. They didn't speak English. They learned English because that's what you did back then. And they were the top students at their schools in Seoul, Korea. That's their reward, was to come to college in the United States. And back then it was Warren Wilson Junior College in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nowadays they go to Harvard or Yale or something.
Right.
But back then it wasn't that way. And so, there were like 16 doctors in my family.
Right.
So that's what I was supposed to be, but I was born here. So that's what I tell my dad all the time. I said, "Look, you left. I was born here. So my priorities are girls, sports,
right,
school."
Right.
School's a distant third. So, I was close to graduating. I was in my 6th year of college and my 5th major. And my mom had no problem because she always knew I was going to do something else. I mean, I was going to play pro baseball. That was my whole
Really?
thing. Yeah, that was my whole attitude. And yeah, the funny thing is, I only played through high school. But we were city champs. We lost 1 game, that kind of thing. We were really good, and so we travel and play baseball, and everybody kind of freak out that here's this Korean kid playing baseball. I mean, this is late 70s. I graduated in 1980, and so even in college, we play intramural football, and I was the quarterback because I was always the quarterback.
Right.
And all these other teams were playing. They'd never seen an Asian kid be a quarterback.
Right.
So they had this whole thing. It's like George Lopez said, "Yes, ethically impossible for me to be an athlete" back then.
Right.
So I told my dad, I said, "Hey, look, I dropped out of college. I'm not going to finish school. I'm going to do stand-up comedy." And he had no idea what that was.
He didn't even know what you were talking about. Oh, my gosh.
No, he didn't know. And so I tried to explain him, like on Johnny Carson when we see these guys. And he's like, "Oh, you're going to be on Johnny Carson?" And I said, "Well, not yet."
Not exactly.
Yeah. I just started last Monday. So
oh, man.
This is Sunday afternoon because I dropped out of college on Friday. This is Sunday. I went by the house. And he did not really speak to me for about 1.5 years.
Wow.
And then I did a thing on Showtime. And he happened to catch it on TV. And before that, I was doing a show in Cincinnati because I hit the road a couple months after I dropped out of college. He was up there for some, I don't know, nuclear physicist seminar. And
you're not kidding. He's a nuclear physicist?
Oh, yeah. He had an MD degree. He had a couple doctorates.
Oh, God.
So he was up there for some conference, and his colleagues came to the comedy club. Well, I was emceeing. So they went back talking about this kid they saw that they never seen anything like it. He's
wow.
a Southern, he's Korean, but he was born in Knoxville. And my dad's like going, "What was his name?" And they said, "Henry Cho." "Man, you're Cho. Do you know him?" And my dad, he did not tell him that I was his son. He just said, "No, I don't know him." So,
oh, my God.
But he found out that's what I do. And then, 18 months after he wasn't on board. He was on board. He told me I should stick with it. And, after that, I was bulletproof and I was off and running.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an incredible story, Henry.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
You're telling me the story, and in real time, I'm thinking to myself, what would I do and how would I feel if I had to tell my old man what my new career path was going to be? And I would have been frightened. Your father had to be strict. I know, I'm sure Asian parents are strict, and they want their kids to do well, and they want their kids to get an education. It's probably the most important thing in their life is for you to be successful and get an education. So this had to absolutely destroy him, which it did for a year and a half. He wouldn't talk to you.
Yeah, it did. And I still have aunts who, I still have relatives that don't appreciate what I do to this day. I have cousins who were forbidden to watch me on TV.
Oh my God.
Their parents didn't want them to be influenced by me whatsoever. I mean, it's still, it still holds true. And for the most part, I get it. But, like I said, I was born here. So there's your first mistake.
Wow. And you turned into a success, and now they've got to understand. And tell me, so when you're in college, you said your plan was to become a doctor. Was that your major? Were you going to med school? What were you planning on doing?
I started out in pre-vet because I was not going to be a real doctor.
Okay.
I was going to be and I loved animals. And I thought, okay, if I'm forced down this path, this is what I'm going to do. And then I found out I had to go to school for 7 years. And I went, I ain't doing that.
Right.
So I went into engineering. I took all these chemistry and physics, all these classes. And, I did well, but I'm like, I can't do this. And then I noticed more girls were in business, so I changed over to business.
Right.
And then I was in accounting, and I thought this is going to be boring for me, so I went into marketing, and then went into advertising, which was actually kind of my lane, and I was doing really well. And then I started doing stand-up, and I just quit. And, the crazy thing is, back when I started, I did any show anywhere to get as good as I could get as fast as I could. So even though I didn't do open mics, that didn't mean I didn't do horrible shows,
right?
Horrible situations. I was just getting paid for it.
Right.
That was the difference. And I was actually getting real time. I wasn't doing 2 minutes every third Monday of the month. I was doing 15, 20-minute sets. So I worked super hard to keep moving up. And, the funny thing is Gary Shandling ended up being, hate to name drop, but I'm going to. He and Seinfeld, long time mentors of mine. And I'll never forget Gary saying, if you ever write a book, we'll write the first 2 chapters of how to start out in comedy, because no one does it like you did.
Right.
No one gets hired. No one gets to that kind of stage time. No one gets that good that fast. I did my first headline show within my first year.
Oh my God.
So,
one of the things I wanted to ask you, Henry, and I'm sure you could probably elaborate on it, but I think you already gave it to me. Like, I was going to ask you, like, what was your big break? It seems like you were off to the races immediately. All this happens to you your very first time that you get on stage and you try comedy. But after that, can you remember a moment where your life changed forever? Was it an appearance on Johnny Carson? What was the thing that happened to you that changed your life forever? The moment, the big break, if you will. Okay,
there's probably 3 or 4. The first one was being on that stage during that competition when I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was a local competition. And it was a funniest person in a Tennessee competition for Showtime's funniest person in America competition.
Okay.
That's why the owner of the Funny Bones was there, and it was packed. And everybody in that room knew what was going on except for me.
Right.
And my 2 buddies. We had no idea. I barely had enough gas to get my truck there. So And so the biggest break was that me doing as well as I did, which was crazy, and Jerry Kubak seeing me and hiring me right there on the spot. Because I came off stage, he goes, "Hey, how long you been doing comedy?" I said, "That was it." He goes, "No, really?" And I said, "That was it." And my buddies are like going, that was it. That's the first time he's ever done anything. And he said, "Well, I need an MC this week." So that's the other big break. They had a show that week, which is, MC, middle act, headliner in a comedy club, and they didn't have an MC. Had they had an MC, this probably wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But the MC that week had bailed on him or whatever. So he said, "Hey, I need an MC this week. Do you want to work this week?" And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "You do 15 minutes and you introduce the other acts." And I said, "Well, I got 5. I don't have 15. He said, "Well, do that 5. It's the best 5 I've ever seen in my life."
Wow.
So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." He goes, "I'll pay you a couple $100. I went, "Really? Okay." So I started working on Wednesday. And then I worked with a guy named John Hinton, who was the middle act. The headliner, he didn't have that great a device. But John Hinton was the middle act, and John Hinton became an actor on Living Color. So, I'm sorry, not Living Color.
Was that the Hemi guy? Was that the You Got a Hemi? Was that him?
No. No. John Hinton's a black comedian. He was on Living
Single, was it?
Living Color.
Singer. Okay, Living Single with Martin,
like
or with Tootie from Facts of Life. I know, yeah.
So John Hinton gave me advice the first night he ever saw me, because he knew the story that I started on Monday. And he was freaking out. He goes, "I can't believe you've been on stage 3 times now." So that was the biggest break. The second break was Jerry Seinfeld was in Atlanta, and there was his opener couldn't make it for some reason. And I was been doing comedy, I don't know, 6 months at this time, but I already had a reputation in the area that I was clean. I've always been clean since day one. So I get a call to go open for Jerry Seinfeld in Atlanta. And Seinfeld took me under his wing and helped me out, gave me great advice, went back to LA, told, Leno and Gary Shandling and all these guys about me. So lo and behold, the next couple of years, I'm touring. 75% of my shows are with the best stand-ups in America. Early on, I worked with Bill Engvall. Bill Engvall took me under his wing, had me out to LA, stayed at his house, introduced me to comedians and all the clubs there. And so I went up on stage in 1986, and then I moved to LA in 1989. And Linda Bloodworth Thomason saw me on TV, and next thing I know, I'm doing Designing Women. And all these things are happening so fast because that was all I did. I ate, drank, slept, stand-up comedy, writing jokes. I toured. First 2 years I was ever working, I worked 50 weeks a year.
Right. Wow.
The first tour I had I was gone from my house 18 weeks. I worked my way 9 weeks out and 9 weeks back. So, I was doing shows anywhere and everywhere. So the biggest breaks came from the first night, Jared Kubak being there, being clean. So I got to work with Bill Engvall and Jerry Seinfeld early on. And then the other break was doing the Tonight Show back when everybody watched the Tonight Show. It was just one of those things.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
You did not have, I'm sure, a similar path like others that have gone before you, Henry. I mean, have you ever had a regular job? What was your very first job? And then, while you were developing your stand-up comedy, did you ever have to work odd jobs outside of comedy?
No, yeah, I like all kids, I had part-time jobs. I had a paper route when I was in elementary school, junior high school. I had a paper route, and then I'd clean up after concerts at the Coliseum when I was like 15, 16, that kind of stuff. But in college, I drove a truck for 4 years. I delivered auto parts in a 100-mile radius of Knoxville. So I was gone somewhere after I'd go to school in the morning and drive the truck in the afternoons and evenings. So I had all these part-time jobs. I was a temp job. I mean, I worked on barges on the on the Clinch River. I worked in butcher shops. I did all these horrible jobs just to make cash.
Sure.
And then I worked at the post office, and actually I was really good. They wanted to hire me, but I started doing stand-up, thank goodness. So I worked at Target. I worked at Target for 2 weeks during Christmas rush.
Right.
I was Christmas help for 2 weeks just to get a paycheck to go watch Tennessee beat Miami in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. All these things. So, I had jobs, but not real jobs. So I've never had a real job.
Your very first job was the paper route? Very first paycheck was the paper route when you were a kid?
Yes. First one, is the old school, deliver papers. You had your book. You'd go collect on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right.
Deliver all week. So.
Man, and then at what point, how old were you when all the odd jobs kind of went away? You didn't have to do this stuff anymore because you were a full-time comedian that was successful and making it. How old were you?
I was in my 6th year of college, so I was 24 when I started.
Unbelievable.
And I've never had to like clock in anywhere since.
Wow, man. And inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. This has got to be kind of first. They don't induct many people. I mean, how many people have been inducted into the Grand Ole Opry? Like 200 and something people. I mean, this is a kind of a huge thing. You're the 229th member of the Grand Ole Opry, and I would imagine the first Asian American. And I say that,
oh, yeah.
I don't mean to bring your ethnicity into the mix, but when one thinks of the Grand Ole Opry, you think about, Southern boy, which you are. You are American, Southern guy, born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. But it's just something that you don't hear about. It's a pretty amazing.
No. It's crazy because I'm the first comedian inducted in over 50 years.
Wow.
All right. Right. And I'd been a guest performer probably 100, 110, 120 times before this happened. I'd been going to the Opry and performing for 15, 16 years, something like that. And the fact that I'm a member and, I was born and raised in Knoxville. I know all about the Opry.
Right.
It was never on my radar. Right after I got inducted, I was getting interviewed. People say, "Is this a dream come true?" And I'm like, "No, why would I dream this? Are you crazy?"
Right.
So I never even thought about it. Even when I was performing all those times, I'd never thought about it. Even though, all the old school veteran historical performers there always told me, we got to make you a member. We got to make you a member. The staff, the crew, everybody's telling me this. I'm like, you guys are crazy. I ain't going to be no member of the Opry.
Right.
And lo and behold, I'm a member of the Grand Ole Opry. So for something like that, and the fact that I'm Asian is the sidebar. And it's always been the sidebar of my entire career. Here's another thing people can't figure out. You look at any other ethnic comedian and their audience is 95, 98% that
ethnicity. Yes.
That ethnicity. Mine is 98% white. No one's figured it out.
That is something. That is something.
And marketing people have always tried, how's this happen? Come to my show and it'll be 100% white.
Right.
And they're like, how's this happen? And I'll never forget, I had a deal with CBS, and they hired a Asian writer. I think she was Korean, and she came to watch me do a set at Igby's in West LA, and the audience was probably 95% white. Maybe there may have been 8 Asian people and 20 African Americans and some Latinos because it is LA, but it was over 95% white, and she noticed white people were reacting to me like she'd never seen anyone react to an Asian man. And she couldn't figure it out. So she couldn't write this sitcom because she couldn't figure it out. She kept trying to write me like a Korean guy. And I said, I'm Korean, but I'm not a Korean guy. I'm a Tennessee guy who happens to be Korean. And she couldn't figure that out. So, being a member of the Grand Ole Opry, it's one one of the coolest things in the world. And here's something for you too. I'm the only guy on the planet, the only person in the planet who's a member of the Grand Ole Opry and Harvard's National Lampoon.
That's on two opposite sides of the spectrum, isn't it?
Exactly. And two of the most iconic
absolutely
institutions in America. I mean, they made a caricature of me, and they put my caricature on the wall, next to John Cleese and Billy Crystal. I mean, wow. Come on.
How iconic.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, look, man, you need somebody to help write your movie. I'm telling you, I'm interested, because what a hell of a story. I mean, this is a movie. I mean, your life is a movie.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Henry, have you ever sat back and I don't know, maybe you burn one, you get a little buzz, and you think to yourself, oh man, reflecting on everything, reflecting on your life, and you're like, man, I almost, became a doctor or a veterinarian or a marketing advertising executive. I almost became have you ever had that thought man, it's kind of crazy how this happened. I might have been wearing a pair of khaki pants and a short sleeve dress shirt and a tie and going to work every day as this. Have you ever thought about that, or is it just so far in your rear view that you've never really took time to ponder?
No. No. If I did burn one, I wouldn't need the help to ponder, but I don't burn one. Anyway, so... Well, but I do ponder, and trust me, it's not lost on me. Every time I walk off stage, I just kind of go, "Wow, I got away with another one."
Right.
I mean, I feel like I've snuck in and stolen the last cookie out of the jar.
Right.
Because I mean, I was definitely not thinking about doing this as a career. I was. For my entire life. It's not like I I studied stand-up and I wrote jokes all the time and stuff like that.
Right.
This is just something I thought I could do, and I went and tried it, and all the planets aligned, as they say, because Jerry Kubak was there, and it was a huge national, statewide competition. And I mean, it was working comedians and me. I mean,
right. Real comedians, real working comedians, and you. That's crazy.
Yes. And, a lot of these guys, I get it. I would have been mad too, or maybe not mad. I've been maybe a little resentful, because they're going, wow, he had to be doing, he must have been doing spots in Atlanta and came up here. There's no way that was his first time. It was dude, that was my first time. So, because it was lightning in a bottle. And it just happened, and no one had ever, so Steve Allen, who invented the Tonight Show.
Right.
And every joke probably traces back to Steve Allen, because he's done them all. Steve Allen was a huge fan of mine. And in 1989, I did the comedy festival in Las Vegas. And I came off stage, and Steve Allen is standing there.
Wow.
And he introduces himself, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Allen, I know who you are.
Right.
He said, the old saying, there's no such thing as a new joke. I said, right, because you did them all. He said, well, besides that, he said, there's no such thing as a new joke. He goes, but you have 10. Because there's been Southern comedians, and there are some Asian comedians, but they don't speak with a Southern accent.
Right.
And you've told 10 jokes that no one has ever come from your perspective, ever. And no one else can tell those jokes but you.
Right.
You have 10, he goes, and you probably have more. Just in that set alone, you had 10 new jokes that no one has ever heard, that I've never heard, that I never even thought I would hear. Man. And I'm like, wow, you're Steve Allen.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was speechless.
I would... Yeah, it's just such an incredible story. And by the way, henrychocomedy.com You can see a list of all of Henry's shows. Again, henrychocomedy.com. By the way, locally here in the Gulf Coast of Florida, January 23rd at one of my favorite venues, the Tampa Theater.
January 24th.
24th is Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall in Fort Myers. And January 28th in Orlando at Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts. Those two venues, though, the one in Fort Myers, great, and up in Tampa, I love the Tampa Theater. It's an iconic theater up in Tampa. So get Henry's tour dates again, henrychocomedy.com for more information on where he's coming. And man, I got to tell you, I had some technical difficulties. People listening, they don't know. I had to call, I talked to Henry and I said, hey, I'm having some technical difficulties. Can I call you back in about 5 minutes? Henry was gracious enough to give me the time and give me a little extra time. So I really appreciate it, but I really enjoyed the conversation and it was just a hell of a story. Great, great story. I would say good luck to you, but it seems like I'm a little late for that. And but
I always need luck, my friend.
Congratulations, congratulations on all your success. What a great story. And again, I get the anxiety just thinking about that conversation between you and your old man. I'm quitting college to become a traveling stand-up comedian. I can only imagine how frightened you were with that conversation.
Terrified.
henrychocomedy.com. Once again, thank you so much, Henry. It was a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Yeah, everything I do is Henry Cho Comedy, every social and all that. So thanks for having me on the air. And local boy Nathan Wallace will be with me in Fort Myers, Florida. He's been touring with me for 3-4 years. So come check out all the Florida shows. I'm going all over Florida.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Henry. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks,
thank you, man.
You too.
Bye-bye now.
See you, man. Thanks.
All right. So he was in his 6th year of college, 5th major, and one night with his college buddies tries stand-up at like an open mic night. Maybe some like local contest that he wins. Just a natural. Had no idea, never did it before, didn't know anything about telling jokes. Just kind of a funny guy. And from there, it all happened, his comedy career, which is not usually the story for 99.9% of the people. This was like kind of a special thing that happened to Henry Cho. You know, his parents were from Korea. So I mentioned, breaking the news to his father that he was quitting college to become a traveling stand-up comedian, had to absolutely destroy him. And he said, yeah, his old man didn't talk to him for about 1.5 years. They wanted him to become a doctor. So obviously when you say, hey, not only do I not want to be a doctor, I want to be a traveling stand-up comedian and I'm quitting college, I could see where that conversation went south. But hey, look, things like that don't usually happen to people like they did for Henry. He said he wanted to be a professional baseball player. And he said he almost worked at the post office, but the comedy career started right then and there. Very first job, delivering newspapers. That was my very first job as well. And he said he had other jobs, like part-time gigs. He said he worked at Target. He worked at a butcher shop, like I mentioned, the post office. But he said he never really had a real job. Little part-time gigs here and there. But other than comedy, that was his only real job to date. Or I should say show business. Pretty incredible story, isn't it? On tour in the new year, you can go to henrychocomedy.com as well as all of his socials for more info on where Henry Cho is touring. So happy New Year, and thank you once again for checking out the Celebrity Jobber podcast. Past guests and episodes online, celebrityjobber.com, streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please hit the subscribe button. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. I'm telling you, this story from Henry Cho could turn into a movie. Hey, man, sometimes you just step in it. And then the reason that Henry's successful is a lot of hard work followed. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Happy New Year. Until next week here on the Celebrity Jobber podcast. I'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.